is possible to become free from debt, financial worry, your boss, and your zip code. You can start living a life you love, but first, you need to find your freedom. Using financial independence and lifestyle design principles, you can create the life of your dreams now. There are many paths to freedom, and that is what this podcast is all about. My name is Becky from 20free.co, and I am the host of the Find Your Freedom podcast. Today's interview is with Moriah Chace, the founder of the personal finance website Our Table for Two. She started the site as a way to explore her own journey through the student loan repayment process, and now uses the platform to educate young professionals about money management and social impact. She's 22 and has already made huge strides in her early financial life. In this interview, Moriah talks to me about paying off student debt, saving 5 figures, and moving across the country to start a new career. We discuss saving money through mindful spending, making ethics-based career decisions, and designing your lifestyle on a small budget. Welcome to Find Your Freedom, Moriah.
Thanks, it's so good to be here.
So great to have you. So let's start with talking about your background. Tell me a little bit about how your personal experiences have shaped your personality and perspectives on money and life.
I grew up as a military rat, and so we bounced around a lot. And so I didn't have a good sense of where our family was financially because we moved one place, and being out in the rural countryside was a badge of I'm rich, and I know I'm rich because I live here, right? But then we moved somewhere else, and like if you were rural, you were super poor. And then my family just went through periods of we were doing really well financially, and then we weren't doing as well financially. And so I just have always had a little bit of money anxiety just because there wasn't a good moniker for like, is our family doing okay? And then I was starting to pay attention to the world right around the 2008 financial crisis. And so that was just a really interesting time to come of age. And I was clearly too young to be in college yet, but like paying attention to the world and like looking at all of the foreclosed signs in the neighborhood and like, is that going to happen to us? My family, we were well-to-do at some points and then on food stamps at other points. So like just a really interesting childhood of like, we're doing well, we're not doing well, that I'm still kind of sorting out myself and trying to figure out like where my money anxiety actually comes from. In high school, our church put on Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and my parents sent me through that. And while I don't think that the information is great when you're just starting out, I think that he hounds on debt and is like, debt is bad, 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 bad. And then going into college and getting student loan debt, like there was already some shame attached there because I like couldn't do what everybody was trying to want me to do. My dad like continually pushed me to get scholarship after scholarship, and I got scholarships for 75% of my education. Like that's a big amount of like, I worked my butt off and I earned hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to this school. Like it was a lot. But I still had to take out 34 grand. That really kind of like weighed on me because I had been brought up to believe that debt is terrible. But then like I was encouraged to go get debt for school because I needed an education, and there were just a lot of mixed signals. And then I graduated high school at 16. So like I was going out into the real world as like a little baby teenager. Like I was taking on massive amounts of debts even before most of my peers, right? Because they were like in their either late teenage years or early 20s.
When they were making that decision.
Yeah, when they were making that decision, and I was 16. And I'm like super thankful for my education. I'm thankful for my student loan debt. I got to study in Israel. I got to study in Oxford. My degree is the reason that I got my first job working at a magazine. I really do think that if you go in with an end goal of getting an education rather than getting a degree that makes money, and you really focused on getting the most out of your education instead of looking at it as a piece of paper that is just a stepping stone to something else, I think that it's good and important. That's at least my view. But I didn't come to that conclusion until after we hit 0 day. So that's we being my husband and I, we got married the day I graduated college. I walked down one aisle, grabbed my diploma, walked down my second aisle, grabbed a husband. Fun times, do not recommend.
How old were you?
I was 20. So I had a college diploma and a husband before I was legal to drink.
Wow. Well, that's quite a head start on a lot of people.
Right?
I wanted to ask, so you mentioned your 0 day. Can you explain what a 0 day is and how you got there?
We decided that instead of just having a teeny tiny emergency fund and paying off debt super quickly, that just didn't seem secure to me. We wanted to grow our assets while we were paying off my student loan debt. My interest rate is hovers around 4%, and so it's a very, very low interest rate. So it didn't make sense to not be investing in 401ks, to not be building up a substantial emergency fund, to not be saving for we're going to take a 10-year sabbatical, so when we hit our 10 years of marriage, we're going to go and spend a year living in South America. And so
That's a really exciting goal.
I'm so excited about it. It's going to be amazing. But like we have to start saving for that now, even if it's just $25, $30 a month, just building on that. And so we were doing all of this saving, and then we were paying anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a month on student loans, just depending on what we could afford and that type of thing. And so last July, I hit 0 day, which is when our assets totaled my debt. And so we had no money. We could use all of our assets and pay off all of my student loans and have $0 left.
So you're at $0 net worth, right?
$0 net worth, and it was so exciting. We had friends over. I got steaks on sale. The grocery store by our house will sometimes, if the meat is going to expire the next day, they'll like 50 to 75% off it. And so I like grabbed a bunch of steaks. I grabbed like $5 wine.
I love it.
And it was so fun. And then I just made a fancy meal for me and my husband. And then we had two really good friends who were visiting. And we just kind of celebrated.
That's so exciting. And that was fairly soon after you started in having an income after college and paying off your student loans. You were able to reach a $0 net worth while you were still working towards different goals besides just your debt repayment. So can you talk a little bit about how you decided what the balance would be between paying off your debt and building your emergency fund? Did you have a particular order in mind, or were you pursuing them all simultaneously?
The order was, what stresses me the most this month?
I love it. Work with your anxiety levels, right?
Work with your anxiety. Like, if something is stressing you, reevaluate your budget. The point of money is to alleviate financial anxiety. That's the point of having money, is to not have anxiety about it. And then also it's a means to an end. Like our vacation, we're funding with money, and we're eating, and that's with money. So part of it was just growing a better relationship with money. Part of it was listening to what I felt we needed to do. Part of it was just automating. Our net worth increased anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And so sometimes that was, oh my gosh, my student loans are giving me nightmares. I need to pay them off. And other times that was, wow, we only have 2 months of savings. If there's a disaster, we are not prepared. And then after 0 day, we decided to move across the country. So we were living in California, and then we moved down to Texas, and we've been here about 2 months. But it was a 6-month journey of like just getting us to the move date of what is our money looking like? How do I reposition my finances? And we actually decided, I had a goal last year of paying off $10,000 of my student loans, and I only paid off about $8,000 last year, but we made the decision to fail that goal so that we could do something bigger with our life.
I think that's great that you're not only using money as a tool, but you're working in an emotional way with your money. A lot of people think that money is just numbers and it's very analytical, but if you've ever seen how people react to the stock market crashing,
like right now,
as we're recording, the stock market is continuing to go
going
down.
crazy. And on that point, I haven't even looked at our investments in 2 months because A, we moved, and so a lot of cash flow just out of our pockets. And then B, right after we were finally settled, the market started going crazy, and I'm like, I'm not going to even look at anything because I know it's emotional, and I know if I look at it, I'm going to panic, and there's not much I can do right now.
Exactly. And if you're a long-term buy and hold investor, if you're investing for the future, if you're saving your money for a date that's not 2 to 5 years in the future, but it's a further out, 10, 20, 30 years when you retire, especially at your age when you're so young and you have compound interest in your corner helping you out, you don't have to worry about the day-to-day fluctuations, because in the long run, the only thing that matters is you keep your money in the market. So I am totally on the same page as you. I actually also have not been checking my portfolio. And part of the reason is there's no need for me to feel emotional distress, right, or anxiety over what my money's doing right now, because I'm not intending to change anything about my investment strategy for like 10 years. There's no point in me looking, because all that's going to do, I know it's going to make me have an emotional reaction. And then in the worst case scenario, and this happens with a lot of people, they get so freaked out that they make a poor, emotionally charged decision to take their money out of the market or to move stock investments to cash or something like that, that can have long-term detrimental effects on their finances because of like a momentary emotional reaction. So knowing myself, and you know yourself, I'm saying I'm not going to look at it because I don't want to change what I'm doing, but I might feel compelled to do so if I have a reaction to what I'm seeing. So I'm hearing, the stock market's going down. My partner checks his all the time. He's kind of the mindset actually that if you check your money like more, he's kind of like on a daily, every other day, just check the net worth, see what it does. He feels desensitized to the emotional reaction.
Oh, that's interesting. I think that would just make it worse for me.
I tend to agree because I'm a kind of a high stress person, a high strung person. And so I worry about things, and my subconscious is really going to roll around like, oh, you're losing money right now. Every second you're losing money. Whereas for some people, he's very even keeled. He's super relaxed. My partner's like, I could look at it every day. It actually makes it easier for me to lose money because I'm seeing, oh, it's okay. I'm losing money. But last month I was looking and I was gaining money. So it's all going to even out. It'll be fine. And everyone has different levels of comfort with things like that.
And I think that emotions and money really go hand in hand, and you have to use both tools wisely. And so it sounds like your partner is using his emotions wisely because he knows how they fit together, whereas like if I were to try to do that, it wouldn't work. But I know my emotions, and I use them wisely in a different way.
I totally agree. So I just think it's really smart that you're doing it that way. And something that this took me so much longer to realize than, I mean, you're very young. You're in your early financial life. You are so ahead of where a lot of people are. And I'm so happy to have you on the podcast to show other people that there are things that if you learn them early can really set you up well for the rest of your life. I think you're on such a strong trajectory and you're very early in your path, which means that you have all of these things in your corner. You're able to use these experiences for longer, because I didn't learn this emotional stuff about money right away. I didn't know that. So I was sabotaging myself at your age. And you also have compound interest, like I said, in your corner.
Well, okay, I haven't checked in 2 months because A, the move, and then B, the stock markets. But before the move, we had $30,000 in assets.
That's amazing.
That's a year's worth of spending for us. Some of it is tied up in retirement, some of it is emergency fund, some of it is in a brokerage account for our. But we had a year's worth of assets. That's a lot as a 22-year-old.
Absolutely. That is so much, because a lot of people don't even think about investing money for their future when they're first getting out of college, when they're first starting to live on their own, because you get slammed with all of these new expenses. You're renting or buying a home. You have to pay for your groceries and things like that, which typically people that are younger than college age don't have those experiences paying for. So you have put all this early work into your finances. The other thing that you mentioned was automation. Can you just talk really quickly about how you automate your finances and how that has helped you get to where you are right now?
Right now, the only thing that's automated is our credit card bill, because like I just started a part-time job and my husband will be starting a job next week, so we don't want anything automated right now because we have to know exactly how much money is coming out of our savings account. But last year, I just went to HR and I was like, hey, I need forms to fill out for your automation process. And then it just came straight out of my paycheck. I think it was $275 went straight to our high yield savings account. We both put 15% of our money into a 401k. His was a traditional, mine was a Roth because we want both buckets in retirement. And I know that there's a lot of argument about which is better, and I don't really care about that. I just want like the multiple buckets for different things just because I think that it's good to diversify how you're even paying your taxes. So we did that, and then all of our bills were automated. So it just, my student loans are automated. Oh, that is still automated now because we get a discount on our percentage rate if we automate them. So just making sure that everything is paid so that you don't have to worry about paying it, and then making sure that like you've set up your paycheck to pay into savings, to pay into your 401k, to pay into all of your little buckets that you want to have so that you will have the buckets.
Yeah, and that's commonly called paying yourself first. So instead of putting, say, your whole paycheck for ease of use is $1,000, so you're putting $1,000 into your checking account, and then you look in there and say, wow, look, I have $1,000 to spend.
And then you go out and buy a Prada bag because you're like, woohoo, I have money. And if you're saving for a Prada bag and you love Prada bags, like go buy your Prada bag. I'm not trying to shame, but like if you're making mindless purchases, or maybe it's like, oh, I hate that I have like all of these analogies like the daily coffee or the books because like I love coffee and I love books. And so for me, that's like mindful spending. But maybe if you're like, if you're not getting joy out of what you're buying and you're just buying it as a compulsory thing, or I know for me, when I first started being conscious, I stopped going to thrift stores for a little while because I would just buy stuff and then like 3 months later, people, what the crap is this, and get rid of it. And so for me, that was like just my mindless, I have money, I'm an adult, I'm going to spend things. And now I'm like, I do have money, but I really, really, really want to go to South America in 10 years. So like, let me spend my money on that instead.
That has kind of two pieces to what you were just saying. And one is paying yourself first so that your goals are being met before you're looking at your checking account balance to see what you can spend on those discretionary, even intentional but discretionary purchases. And the second is goals-based spending. I'm hearing a lot about, you have very specific goals. That sabbatical in 10 years to South America is a huge motivating goal. And the fact that you have that there to inform whether or not you're going to spend on other items is really important, because you talk about on your blog intentional spending. You also talk about minimalism. Can you tell me how that fits in with your finances?
Yeah, so when we moved, we had so little stuff that we only needed one pod to ship out. We decided to take a week-long road trip, so we just packed all of our stuff and had U-Haul ship it out, which ended up being less than $2,000. So it was fairly an inexpensive way to move, and then we spent $1,000 on the road trip itself because, you know, we ate out and it was great.
Because that was almost, I don't want to say a vacation, but it was a travel experience.
Oh, it was such a vacation. Yeah, it was so fun. Just having less things, and I feel a little bit like I can't be talking about minimalism because I literally bought this shirt and like 10 others last week. But I needed a new wardrobe because I just started working at Starbucks. But that at least had intention to it. None of, literally, almost every shirt I own is from FenCon last year.
Love it. We get a lot of free shirts at conferences, right?
Oh my gosh, so many free shirts. But that was like not Starbucks appropriate. And so I had to like revamp my wardrobe a little bit. But I was really intentional about, okay, I don't need any pants. So I didn't buy any pants. And then I just bought a couple shirts to like fill the gap of what I needed. And then we updated my husband's wardrobe because he hasn't had new clothes in probably 3 to 4 years because he just doesn't care about it. That's the thing for us, is I don't necessarily think that we're minimalists. I think that we're care aboutists. And so if we care about something, we're going to spend money on something. But if we don't care about something, then we're not going to spend money on it. And just being really intentional about, okay, what am I thinking when I'm spending? Like, am I trying to like assuage a feeling in myself? And do I actually have to deal with my crap? Or like, is it a utilitarian purpose? what's the mix going on inside myself that is going to explain why I'm spending the money that I'm spending, and is it worth spending the money that I'm spending?
Let's talk about your move and one, how you financially prepared for it, and two, what the purpose of the move was and what the outcome of the move was.
When we hit 0 day, which was in June, we started kind of reevaluating our life. And we both had very stable jobs, decent income. Together, we were pulling in $62,000 a year, which is not a crap ton, but we were able to increase our net worth by $20,000 in our first year of marriage. It was enough to live on and save, and we took a vacation. We did a lot of like weekend road trips up to Oregon and stuff, and then we took a big week-long trip out to Washington D.C. So we were like vacationing a little and saving. So we were living a middle-class life, but we wanted more for ourselves, and the more for both of us is education. And I loved living in California. Oh my gosh, you bash the state and say that I moved to Texas because it's cheaper living, I'll fight you. Like, it's a beautiful state, and we were able to live comfortably on $40,000 a year because we focused on values-based spending and making sure that we were spending on things that we cared about. So the more for ourselves was education, and there just wasn't the ability to like get the education that we wanted in California. I work in politics, and then my husband he wants to be a social worker. He works in social services. He can't be called a social worker because he doesn't have his master's yet. But we started just looking at schools, and the best social work program is in Arlington, and so like that kind of prompted our move. And then also I am a very family oriented person, so my mom is here. We call her our antique Denny because she turned 100 in November. She's out here. My Mimi's out here. I have 5 siblings. 4 of them are out here, and then one is in Virginia for school. For me, it was a very family based move. Like, I moved here for family, and my husband moved here for a really good, solid education. And then we just had more connections in Texas to get me into politics.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were moving for a lot of reasons that were personal and not financial.
Finances didn't factor into our decision, and I hate when people tell me I moved out of California because it was too expensive, because it was not too expensive. We had really good social programs. We had the most amazing library. There were free events almost every weekend in our little small town. I could see our taxes were doing good. The road projects were finally being completed as we were moving, and it's a good state, and I think it gets bashed unfairly for being unreasonably expensive.
What did you do to bolster your finances for a period where you'd be transitioning between jobs for both of you, right? You and your husband both had to leave your jobs, move to a new state where you did have connections in the fields that you actually wanted to be pursuing and the education that he wanted to pursue, but there was going to be a gap in income for a period of time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been about a 3 month gap. So the first thing that we did was we reevaluated our yearly goals. One thing that I'm really upfront about in my blogs, I have set yearly goals. And so in 2019, like one of our big goals was putting $10,000 towards my student loans because I want them gone. I appreciate them, but also like they're like an ex that just won't go away. So we decided to cut back on spending money on student loans and use that excess to save for the move. I also was running a tutoring company, so I took on a bunch of extra clients. And what's really cool that helps kind of transition us is 4 of my family stayed with me through the move. So I tutor via Skype.
You turned your tutoring business into a location independent tutoring business.
I did, yeah. Not every family fit and not every family wanted to try, but those that did, I made about $300 a month the first month, and then the second month it was closer to 700 just cuz winter break. But like that's at least a little bit of money to get me started. So that was kind of our stopgap in between that. And then we both got pretty big year-end bonuses at work, and that really helped push us over the edge. And then we found ways to cut costs and save money on the move. So I spent hours and hours and hours and hours price searching and looking for like what was the best company that met our needs and the cheapest. And then when we took the road trip, we camped in our car. We have a 2003 Honda Element. So we took out the back seats and we shipped those with our stuff. And it was us, our dog, our 2 cats, and my plant, along with all of our crap. The whole family. And we spent 6 days on the road, and so while we didn't pay for hotels because that would have easily made our costs skyrocket, we ate out more, and like anytime we saw a fun little excursion, we just stopped and did it. And we really we had kind of a game plan of like timeline and stuff, but we just kind of honestly, I didn't even really look at my money that week because I knew that we had 3,000 budgeted and there was no way we were going to spend $3,000 in a week.
So you had the freedom by setting yourself up financially prior to the move.
Yeah, but that started in July, so we'd been saving for 5 or 6 months.
Right. The planning part was really important to make this go smoothly and to make it low stress and actually fun. You were able to take a vacation in the time that you were moving.
Yeah, it was so fun.
And so you're all settled in now in Texas. You were both job searching for a little while.
The worst. I hate it. It's so not job hunter friendly. Oh my gosh.
It's definitely skewed in terms of making the employers happy, and online applications and things like that are just the worst for the actual job applicants, right?
Yeah, it's the worst. So literally what I did, and this goes against all advice known to mankind, but I ended up with 3 job offers this way, was I just clicked, if I read a title and I liked it, I applied to the job. I didn't look at the requirements. I just kind of skimmed the description, looked for things, and then applied. There were a couple days on Indeed where it was like, you have hit your max applications for a day. You are not allowed to apply to jobs until tomorrow. So I ended up going on 30 interviews, which 300 applications, 30 interviews, that 10%, that's kind of standard. And then I got 3 job offers. One of them was an unpaid internship at the campaign that I'm now working on. So there was kind of a cool trajectory there. I ended up taking that one. The other one was a sales position that I could have done but would have hated, and I turned that down. And then another one was an administrative assistant position that I would have done really, really well, but I was looking for more of a stopgap job while I was doing the unpaid internship, and they wanted somebody who was going to work part-time but eventually go into a full-time role. And so I didn't feel like I could honestly commit that to them. And for me, I could have taken the job and done the 8 months or 9 months and then ditched them for something better, but my ethics just wouldn't let me, because I think that it's important to be honest to your employer at the get-go, and then if things change. So what I ended up doing was I walked into our local Starbucks, I handed them a resume, and I was like, you need me to work in your store. They hired me within a week, and then it took a couple weeks for my background check to clear. So I actually just started my first week last week. So I'm working at Starbucks for money, and then I'm working at the campaign for career development.
In your story, I'm hearing that you were really empowered to make choices based on your interests and your passions, because one of the reasons that you went to Texas was to pursue your career in politics, as well as you were able to make choices that aligned with your ethics and your values. And I think a lot of people struggle when they don't have money to make choices in alignment with both their passions and their values. But by setting yourself up financially, you had the freedom to make those choices. Even if it was an unpaid internship, you could take a career step forward with that temporary unpaid internship and then fill the back with Starbucks. I really like that you were able to align your job with those things that you actually care about. That's really impressive.
That's my biggest thing is I want a life that I can be proud of. And if I make poor choices in my 20s, I'm not going to have that life. And so making sure that you're making the good choices now, it sets myself up for something that I can look back on and say, wow, I did that. And I really want to have that sense of personal accomplishment that comes from career, that comes from family, that comes from all of these different things, but you can't have lived a good life and you can't have contributed to the world if you didn't make decisions that align with your ethics. And that was a really hard choice, actually, choosing between Starbucks and the administrative assistant position, because when I applied, Starbucks was offering $9.50 and the admin was 10. And so I was like, okay, at that time Starbucks had the better benefits, but then the admin position offered me 13 an hour. That kind of hurts my little money geek side because I know I could have done the admin role well. I just knew that they were looking for a career person and I wasn't going to be that for them.
And your long-term thinking was to align with those things that are important to you. You weren't looking at the short term, which would be that 8 or 9 months maybe, right?
Having to think long term and not short term is hard in terms of money. I did a mock budget. My husband hasn't started his job yet. So, like, I'm the only one working and I'm only working 20 hours a week. And there's a lot of pressure that I just have internally because, oh my God, we don't have money. That, like, having to think long term instead of thinking, we don't have money, this would give us money. It's a hard struggle. You really have to remember like what your core values are and how you want to set up your lifestyle, because if you don't remember those two things, you're going to take the job that's ultimately a bad fit.
Yeah, and I'm hearing pieces of lifestyle design here. It seems like you're being very intentional about your lifestyle design. So, do you want to talk about lifestyle design on a smaller budget? How does that look for you?
Yes. Okay, so right now I make about $700 a month from Starbucks. Woohoo. And my husband, he will be making $11 an hour. So we make $21 an hour combined. It's not great, but like it pays the bills. For right now, we are renting a room for my mother, but at market rate. It works for us because we don't have to get a whole apartment, and it would be harder to find a room to rent that would fit our needs from someone else. So like there is a benefit, but also it's a fair financial transaction. But that's kind of helps us kind of not have to stress about some other things. My mom's big on bartering, and we've always been big on bartering too. So like exchanging goods and services for different things, and so that's kind of been helpful on the smaller level. I mean, it's not great that we're moved back in with my mom. Like I don't that's a little bit hard for me to admit, even though like I love living here. I'm just a huge family person, so it fits like our lifestyle design and what we want out of life. But I just want to be upfront that like we are living with my mom, but we are paying market rate rent for a room, not an apartment, just a room. So there is that, but then also like what are your goals? Asking yourself, what is my end goal? When we moved here, we had dreams that we were both going to get full-time jobs making slightly less than what we were making in California, and that we were going to be able to save up $15,000 and buy a house. Clearly, that is not what is happening right now. And so we've really had to step back from our dreams and look at, okay, what is realistic for me right now? And it's been hard for me because I dream so big and I'm really, really good at accomplishing those dreams. So on a smaller scale, we had to think about what would make us the most accomplished right now. And what would make us feel the best and what would make us feel the most proud. And I think if you look at that and not ask the money questions yet and just say, okay, what would make me feel proud? And what outside of money would make me feel proud? Because right now we can't really change our money situation. I tutor, like I said, I continue to tutor, and then I'm also starting freelancing. So I've written a couple articles for different people, which has just helped a few places to fill in the gaps where we need money. But I'm not going to work myself to death. I like my free time. I like spending time with my husband. I like spending time with my pets. I like spending time with my family. So I'm making the money that I'm making, and I can't change it because I have my long-term career goals. And I think that's a bad piece of money advice that's always thrown around is if you're not making money, go find a job that makes more. I don't think that's helpful in lifestyle design because like you can't tell a single mother working 3 jobs trying to put food on the table for her family that she just needs to find a better job. Like That's not even what our economy is set up to do anymore. So you have to look at a smaller level. What would make me proud of myself? Because that's all lifestyle design really is it's constructing your life to make yourself feel good about where you are and feel accomplished. So I've done small things like I'm a member of the Filipinos, which is a funded program that like puts on events for homeless people and really works to interact with the community and bring good into the community. And they donated to UNICEF and like a bunch of different health organizations this month because of the coronavirus. And like those are donations that I couldn't make myself, but because I'm part of this organization, I can do the things that I want to do, but in a different capacity. It's just being flexible and finding where your capacity is, if that makes sense.
And I'm hearing you say that work is not the be all end all of your life, right? Lifestyle design is about the things that you do with your life that oftentimes happen outside of work. That's time with your family. That's contributing to causes you care about. That's doing giving and charity and contribution in whatever way you can. If that's time, if it's donating items, if it's donating money. But there are a lot of things outside of work that come together to create lifestyle design. Often it has very little to do with work and a lot more to do with life outside of work.
Yeah, it's just what is going to make you feel accomplished. And for almost everyone, that's not going to be work. There are some fields like teaching, social work that my husband is going into, politics that I'm going into. Those things, like, we're purpose driven. Those are purpose driven careers. But there are a lot of careers like accountants. I love accountants. They're great. Thank you so much for doing my taxes. That like they could be doing it because it fits their skill set and they're good at what they do, but it's not necessarily purpose driven. It could be. I don't know every single accountant story, but like there's not that deep sense of purpose that a lot of teachers and social workers and ironically lower paid people get because I feel like sometimes, oh, you're passionate about something, let me jip you on the money. I don't think that's fair. But I think that if you're working a job that's a good job and pays well, but you're not finding that passion, I don't think you need to ditch the job. Because that's what I was doing in California. I was working at a magazine. I enjoyed it. I had good coworkers. I had fantastic benefits. I was in an intensive therapy program that was a clinical trial that I was able to go to because of those benefits. It was amazing, and I'm so thankful I had that job. Was I passionate about that job? No. But I built a life for myself outside of work, and I didn't commit myself to fully work. It was a good job. I enjoyed working there. I had great coworkers. I had a fantastic boss. When we moved, I asked if they would transition me to a remote position, and my boss fought for me really hard. Clearly, it didn't pan out, but it was a good job even though it wasn't my deepest and truest calling, you know? And I think that that's a mistake people make is that they have to find purpose in work. And work takes up a big chunk of our day. So if you are stressed at work, if you are having panic attacks because of your work, you cannot sleep because of your work, please reevaluate. But if you just don't like your work, then your work isn't the problem. The problem is that you haven't found something that you're interested in outside of work that kind of is the yin to the yang and balances out some of that, like, okay, you're bored at work, but can you be engaged in other areas?
Right, absolutely. You were talking about giving and the organizations that you're involved with. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're able to ensure that you can give when you're on a small budget, when you're limited in your finances?
Yeah, so giving is something that's hugely important to us. We've committed to giving 5% of our budget to causes that we care about. We donated a lot last year to organizations that were politically active. So, because that's something that I care about and I couldn't get involved in the field, but like my money can do good and my money helps keep the lights on, even if that's just a $5 or $10 donation. I think that if you're passionate about something, A, get out and vote and change things because that's how we do in this nation. But then B, money talks. and money talks in big ways, even in small amounts. So I think that not discounting that $5 donation, because somebody could give a big $3,000 donation, but it's a one-time thing. If you give $5 a month, that organization is going to count on you for those $5, and they're going to continue to budget in those $5. And so it makes a bigger long-term impact. And so I think that giving with your money, even I make $9.50 an hour, like I do not make a lot, but giving with my money is even more important, I think, than giving with my time.
I have heard the saying that money is a magnifying glass. And so the way that it works is the more money you get, it just magnifies the type of person that you are. And you can also see this in people's giving habits. If you start giving when you don't necessarily have that much to give, you can magnify that as you increase your income. So you've made it a money habit. You have set that goal. So if it's a percentage goal, if you're saying 5% of my income is going to be dedicated to giving, then that can scale no matter how much you make. If you make $10,000 a year or $100,000 a year or $1,000,000 a year.
And that's why we do percentage, because it will scale. Because if I gave $100, which is way more than 5%, but it's an easy number, and I make $10,000 a year, but then I only give 100 and I make $20,000 next year, I have halved my donation.
Right. Exactly. Oh, one thing I did want to touch on is, was there any specific reason that you chose Starbucks?
Oh my gosh, I love that company. They just they treat their employees well, and that's really an ethics throughout their entire company. Once I've been vested 3 months, I have access to Starbucks stock. I have access to 401k. I have access to benefits as a part-time employee.
Health benefits?
Health benefits and 401k and I get free coffee every single shift. I get free food every single shift. So like that's why I like don't want to bash on coffee people, because I drink coffee every day. I just found a way for my work to fund it. But I think it's 5 minutes from my house. They take care of their partners really, really well. They're environmentally conscious, not always environmentally friendly, but they're trying. And they're not virtue signaling, they're trying. They ethically source their coffee, they ethically source their tea. They explain what ethically sourced means in their training videos. They make sure that their employees know what they're doing to try to make the world a better place. They donate a lot of money and product to different local charities and things like that. They have their healthcare plan set up in such a way that before gay marriage was legal, there was a way to get long-term partners on the same healthcare plan. And I just think that they treat people equitably. And I wanted to work for a company that I could stand behind.
Yeah, and that sounds like, again, you were working with your values when you were looking at an employer. And I think that's really important.
Everything with me comes back to values and making good decisions. And do I always make good decisions? No, but do I try really, really hard with the big decisions? Yes.
I wanted to shift to talking about financial independence. So, we talk about financial independence a lot on this podcast, and I wanted to see if you were willing to share what are your plans as you move towards financial independence. You're still in the very early stages of your financial life.
Very early stages. We still have debt. We don't have careers yet. We're going to go get our masters. I'm hopefully going to get my PhD, like tons more debt coming our way. So I struggle with financial independence and the FIRE movement in general. I think that it's really helpful for some people. I think that it can also encourage people to be greedy. And so in our journey, I want to make sure that we're not hoarding that money and we're not taking on the mindset of billionaires where they're just like cash mine, because I don't think that that's equitable. I also don't think, and I don't know, but I don't think we're going to retire early. I don't see myself enjoying a life of leisure without something that's purpose driving me. I could change my mind in my 50s or 40s, but for us, financial independence is more focusing on the security aspect and making sure we're doing the 15% to have a good retirement and saving money and making sure that we're setting ourselves up to have a good life but not a life that's fear motivated by not having enough.
Yeah, and I think that's something that the financial independence retire early or the FIRE movement that you referenced is very focused on is retiring early so that you can stop working at that job that you don't like working at. You have circumvented that problem by creating your lifestyle in a way that your job is purpose driven, it's aligned with your values, and it's something that you would want to and would value doing for a long period of time. You're not just looking at the job as a means to an end, but it truly is the end. It is the purpose of why you're working, and the money is the fair transaction that happens from that enables your financial security, your financial opportunity, and your financial freedom, but you don't necessarily need independence from work.
I think that becoming financially independent in case you get laid off or in case something catastrophic happens and your other half dies and all of a sudden all of the bills are on you, I think that having that money set aside for security purposes and for making sure that you're not tied down is good, but I don't see it as anything more than that. And I wouldn't say that I'm actively pursuing financial independence. I'm passively pursuing it. I'm investing, I'm saving, I'm contributing to my future, but it's not an active part of the life that I'm trying to set up for myself, which is kind of a controversial take in the financial community because we talk about finances, so money is always our number one. And for me, it's like three or four. It's very important. I talk about it a lot. I enjoy it. But I think that there are better things that we could be doing with our time that contribute to society that don't necessarily kick back to us in a way that gets us to having fun faster.
And like you mentioned, time is kind of that other resource on the other side of the coin of money. And you are very focused on your lifestyle design, and the way you spend your time is a big part of that. Time is almost a currency. It's a non-renewable resource.
It is a currency, and it's one that I guard heavily. Like, I am very protective with my time. And also, like, my husband and I have fully combined finances, but I work more. So the transaction in our relationship is that he does more chores because time is what we're not exchanging. We like don't even worry about who's paying what bill because oh my gosh, that would stress me out since I'm the one that manages our money and that's within my skill set and I enjoy doing that. And if I manage both of our money together, we get to our goals faster. But then we always have big conversations about what our goals are and that type of thing. And so that we're always like aligned. And if we have diverging goals, we figure out how to fix that. So it's not like, hi, I'm in charge of our marriage and I make all the decisions. It really is a contributive thing that I take the lead on. That said, because I tend to be the one that makes more money and that type of thing, he really makes sure that he utilizes his free time in a way that contributes to our lifestyle in a constructive way.
Now that we're talking about money inside your marriage, do you mind talking about how you have those conversations and how you collaborate about your budget and about your financial goals? Does that look like something that is on the calendar, like a weekly meeting, or is it something that's more organic?
Way more organic. Yeah, I don't got time for a weekly meeting. When we got engaged, we got financially naked and we like put each other, we figured out like all of that crap. He doesn't have student loans. His parents and grandparents paid for his education, which yay, but then also like he was expecting me to not have student loans because we met each other when I was 10 and so we've just always grown up together and our parents were friends and like and then when you grow up together you assume that someone's life is exactly like your own. And so when I was like, "Oh no, I pay $300 a month to my student loans," he got kind of huffy and annoyed at me and I was like, "Sir, that is your white male privilege speaking. That is your affluent privilege speaking, and I will have none of that in our household." And so, like, kind of confronting that we come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and that we have a chance to do something different for our family was kind of the foundation of what our money conversations look like. And a lot of it came from me coming from a poorer socioeconomic background. that was probably the hardest thing, was like him just not even understanding financial stress because he's never had it. And so a lot of our earlier conversations were like me trying to explain financial stress, or like him wanting to go out to eat and me being like, sorry, I made $200 this month. We can't. Because I didn't get my steady job until we had been married for about 6 months. So I was like working contract and just trying to make ends meet. And we were living literally in the middle of nowhere inside a barn because that's all we could afford. But then he still wanted that middle class lifestyle. And like, it's totally understandable if that's what you grew up with, if you're making a decent income for the first time in your life, if you don't understand how much things cost. So a lot of our earlier conversations were me kind of helping him understand what it meant to be poor. And now that we're not poor anymore, which was a mind twist for me when I like realized we weren't actually poor, like then it's been kind of more of a collaboration of what are our bigger goals and what do you want to do. And hey, he is just a very content person. He doesn't have the same kind of big goals that I do. He has goals like he wants to get his master's in social work, and he wants to work with drug addicted teenagers, and he wants to do good in the world. So he has goals, but my goals are like running for president type of like
Scale wise, it's different.
yeah, scale wise it's very different. So a lot of it is me just proposing this goal that he wouldn't even have dreamed of, because again, like we just have different scales for things, and him being like, is that even possible? And me being like, we can make it possible. It's a little bit weird that like I'm the one driving these conversations, which is why they end up more organic than weekly meeting. Because if I come up with the goals and I'm in charge of the finances, it's really easy. And he's always allowed to veto everything, and it's very collaborative, but like it's more my lane, if that makes sense. I feel like a man would never apologize for being like, I set the goals and I manage the finances, but then like as a woman, I feel like I have to like add a clarifying statement, and I hate that. So I'm just gonna stop right now and own it, that I make the goals and I manage the money.
Own it. I love it. I'm the same way in my relationship. Actually, I see a lot of parallels in terms of the goal setting, and I definitely have this like enormous vision, and my partner has goals for himself, but the role that I take in the implementation of things is certainly the lead. And it sounds like you're doing that similarly in your relationship. And we also came into our relationship, we don't have combined finances, but we came in very different financial situations. I was 6 figures in debt when we started dating, and he was not. So he did have student loans, but not on the scale that I did. So I love that you said you guys got financially naked, because something that's really important with someone that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and even someone that you're committed to in a long-term sense, if you're living together, if you're spending money together, is to be on the same page about where you're coming from.
Exactly. And then communicate when you're spending. Like if it's anything joint, when we first got married, I was like penny pinching, and he would go out and get gas for the car but then forget to tell me, and then I would like have that money budgeted elsewhere. And so like if you're combining your finances in any way, like you need to communicate and then figure out what that scale is. For me, like when we were first married and we didn't have 2 cents to rub together, it was a big deal when he spent $40. Now if he spends $40, just let me know so I can pay the bill at the end of the month, because credit card hacking and points, and I'm trying to get into all that, and it's weird and I don't really understand it. But I'm trying, right? And so like just communicating back and forth and making sure that there's an open communication line was really, really important. And I'm sure even if you have separate finances, if you had a big medical bill that suddenly came up and you couldn't pay rent, like sometimes things affects things, and like I'm sure that communication is just as important even if you're financially separate.
Absolutely. It is, because you still have joint goals. Even if you have separate finances, you're working financially together as a team. And I completely agree. Number one piece of advice would be communicate. Communicate about what you want, communicate about what you're spending, communicate about what you want to save and what you're saving. It makes everything a lot smoother, because you hear those statistics like 50% of marriages end in divorce, and the number one reason that people end their marriages is because of financial dispute. People fight about money, and I think everyone probably knows someone who has frequent disagreements with their spouse about money. It's not necessarily, doesn't have to be you.
But no, it's so common, and I think that was one of the things that we've tried to do really, really well in our marriage is make sure that we're always on the same page financially. My parents didn't necessarily do a good job communicating with each other about things like that, and I watched their marriage kind of struggle. I don't want that for myself. I want to be in a place where I don't have to worry about spending more than $5 on something and needing to tell my spouse, which is where we were when we first started our marriage. But then also, I don't want to be in a place where all of the finance communication lines are so broken because there's all this fighting that you can't even talk about the fun things like the goals or what you want to do for your birthday that costs $200.
I agree, because the other thing that I'm hearing you say is that talking about finances can be fun. There are things that finances do for you that can actually help your relationship be more exciting or more romantic or whatever you want, but you have to talk about those things. We do a lot of travel in my relationship, and it almost helps with the anticipation of the next trip to talk about our budget for the trip and how much we're going to spend and how we're going to do the credit card travel hacking for it.
Yes, that's so much fun for me. Our honeymoon, we were gonna go to Norway, but then my car died, so we spent our honeymoon fun on a car. And it was so sad. But what we ended up doing was we took a road trip all around California, and the theme of our honeymoon was like do all of the things that our parents said we were never allowed to do, right? So, like, get the little caricatures done, go on all of the random boat tours in San Francisco, pay for the fun things, go out to eat. And so, like, when we travel, we have a set budget and we know like the fixed spending. So, like, for our road trip, how much gas we needed to spend, those types of things. But then for the rest of it, we don't budget for vacations up into the like, oh, we have $3,000, but we always save such an enormous amount of money that we never go through it all. And that's just so that we can have all of the flexibility that we want to be able to do those big grand things.
I love that. That sounds so great. Now I'm going to move to the rapid fire style questions, where I'm going to ask you a question and you can give me a short answer. Okay?
Okay, sounds great.
All right. So, what does freedom mean to you?
I think just flexibility. That's kind of the theme of my year is flexibility, and so I've just kind of made that my thing.
And what would you do if you could retire right now?
I don't want to retire right now. So that's really tough. I think travel more. Like, we're learning Spanish right now, so spending a couple months in South America to get that full immersion experience. Yeah, I don't want to retire. I have not a good answer for this question.
That's okay. If you don't want to retire, you don't have to retire. The next question is, what would you do if you could never retire?
That also sounds awful. But I think like I'd still do things that I'm doing now because I've set my career up to be something enjoyable.
And your lifestyle, right? You've designed your lifestyle the way that you want it to be in the long term.
I think that's why I don't talk about, because I used to like dream of retiring early, and then I just shifted a couple things, and now like I don't want to retire early because I've built a life that's great. And then also like I love my husband, but the 2 months that we didn't have jobs about killed us because we were always around each other. And it was fun and it was great and it was challenging, but also, oh my gosh, I'm glad to have a break.
Yes, I can see that. Now, if you could go back in time, what one piece of lifestyle or financial advice would you give yourself in either your late teens or early 20s?
Ooh, so college for me. I knew that I should be investing, but I didn't know how. I think that that's something that is failed to be explained to young people is like they're like investing is good and look at all these charts and like you should invest, but they don't sit people down and show them how. And I would have done it if I had known how, but I didn't even have the understanding of how to figure it out. The only thing I knew about investing was a 401k, and I knew you had to have a job to have that. So I think like sitting myself down and opening an IRA would have been what I would have done.
I agree. I don't think we educate young people about how to invest at all. I knew I wanted to invest for years and didn't know what or how I was going to do it. And it scared me. It was something that just due to lack of education became a really insurmountable, like large thing that had to be learned before it could be acted upon.
Yep. That's why I'm the eldest girl of 6 kids. And so all of my younger siblings know when they're ready to invest, when they have a job. Even if they don't have access to a 401k, I'm going to sit them down and show them Vanguard or Fidelity or whatever's hot stuff at that point and be like, this is how you do it. This is how you set the buttons. This is how you click this, so that they have the information that I didn't.
That's so great that you're sharing that. That's everything that I wanted to ask you. Thank you, Moriah.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you online to learn more about your story?
I have a blog called Our Table for Two, so you can find that online. And then I'm also on Twitter at, I think it's Our Table, the number 4, spelled out too, because I don't know how to do social media well.
Your website is also ourtable, the number 4, TWO.com, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So go check Moriah out. If you're interested in learning more about her story, we will have links in the show notes for this episode. To check out the show notes for this episode, which includes links to resources mentioned in today's interview and where you can go to learn more about Moriah, go to 20free.co/episode 30. I want this to be more than just a podcast for listening to, so I'm making it a do-cast, where you're getting information from the podcast that you can take action on to create real outcomes in your life. I call these power moves. If you implement even one of these tactics into your life, you're taking a powerful step towards finding your freedom. What are some power moves we learned from this conversation? Here are 5. Power move number 1. Use money to reduce stress. Not having enough money or having many competing financial goals can be stressful. In the beginning of your money journey, you may have many competing objectives. These might include paying your bills, paying off debt, investing for retirement, or saving for a house or wedding. There are mathematical answers to the question, in what order should I pursue my financial goals? And those can tell you which strategy might make or save you the most money. But we have to recognize that money is emotional, not just rational. That's why we feel anxious or stressed about it sometimes. When you have some money to spend, you can use it to reduce your stress. Moriah prioritized her financial goals by asking herself, what stresses me most right now? She used her money to alleviate her financial anxiety, whether it was wanting to get rid of the burden of a monthly student loan payment or saving an emergency fund for peace of mind. Power move number 2. Know your money psychology. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Money is emotional. We all have different feelings about our money and different mindsets about how to manage it. When it comes to the stock market, it's really important to know your money psychology. Will you get stressed out or scared when the market drops and make an impulsive decision to pull your money out? In this case, maybe you want to avoid checking your investment balances when things aren't going great. For other money psychologies, checking your balance daily might be a good way to desensitize yourself from the fear that might come with volatility. It's important to identify your own psychology and the reactions that come with it so you can act appropriately in order to avoid making money mistakes. Power move number 3. Pay yourself first. Instead of paying your bills first, pay yourself first. That means every time you get a paycheck, send a portion of it towards net worth building activities. That can mean things that decrease your debt or increase your assets. Often, this will be debt payments, investments, or savings. Once you've taken the money out of your income for your financial goals, then allocate the rest towards bills and spending money. The best and easiest way to do this is through automation. Contact your HR department and ask about direct deposit, or set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings and investment accounts. Moriah has automated the process of paying herself first and also has her account set up to automatically pay her student loans and her bills. This is one of the tactics she used to be able to pay down her student loans and save $30,000. Power move number 4, become a mindful spender. Money is a tool that you can use to create a life you love. When you consciously spend your money on things that you value, you move closer to your goals. Mindless spending is usually a product of old habits or emotions. You could be making impulse purchases, or just be used to spending money on certain things, so you don't even question those purchases. Maybe you used to enjoy a snack from the vending machine every day, and you still buy one out of habit even though you don't value it anymore. When you spend your money mindfully, you intentionally align your purchases with your values. This also means that it's no big deal if you enjoy a daily latte, as long as that is an intentional purchase that matches your values. Moriah, for example, buys coffee and books all the time because they matter to her. Someone else might find value in a new purse, but not a daily coffee. This mindset helps you cut out waste in your spending while also giving you the permission to spend on what matters to you. Power move number 5, give a percentage of your income. If giving is something that matters to you, you can start now, even if you don't have much money. The easiest way to do this is give a percentage of your income. That way, your giving scales as your income grows, and you can give more as you earn more. Plus, this helps you get into the habit of giving. Of course, giving money isn't the only way to make an impact. Like Moriah says, you can vote, volunteer time, and spend money in accordance with your values. But don't think that small donations don't make a difference, because they do. Giving consistently, even in small amounts, has a long-term positive impact. Moriah donates 5% of her income, which may be a small amount when she's working part-time, but will grow as her income grows. That is the 5th and final power move from my conversation with Moriah Chace. Do you want to finally feel good about your finances and have a stress-free plan to create a life you love? It's time for you to reach your biggest money goals, like paying off debt, building up savings, and using your money to create your ideal life. As a money coach, I will help you gain clarity about what freedom looks like for you, develop a strategy to get there, and overcome your money roadblocks on the path to financial and lifestyle freedom. Let's hop on the phone. During our free 15-minute coaching call, we're going to develop a vision for your ideal life and how your finances fit in. Not only are you going to get massive clarity, you're also going to get a free spending plan spreadsheet just for booking the call. Visit 20free.co/moneycoaching to get your free money coaching call and budget spreadsheet right now. That's the word 20, free.co/moneycoaching. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you're subscribed to the Find Your Freedom podcast on whatever app you're using to listen to this episode. Do me a favor and also leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Go to 20free.co/iTunes to be redirected to the page on Apple Podcasts where you can leave your rating and review. I really appreciate it. If you think this episode would help someone you know, please share it with a friend. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Find Your Freedom podcast. My name is Becky. You can connect with me on Instagram and Twitter at 20freeco and sign up for free resources and email updates at www.20free.co. That's the word 20, free.co. I'll talk to you next week on another episode of the Find Your Freedom podcast.